Hey, what is branding and should nonprofits do it? Well, first let's talk about what branding is. Really, modern branding started, I'm going to have to say it happened in the United States. Probably talking about the 1800s when there was a big push to move out west. People were sending supplies out there as they were moving out there and working out there and building out there. And the supplies were basically perceived as all pretty much equal. Products were products, commodities were commodities. And they were just simply marked by what was in the bag or what was in the box or what was in the barrel. Okay, and typically that's all there was just indicated what was inside of it. Well, as people moved out west and started establishing homesteads and started building cities out west, you were traveling through west, they wanted you to buy stuff from them locally. And the only way to distinguish the local products from the national products was to mark them that way. And maybe a little different than things are today, the national brands weren't considered as good as the local brands. People were proud of the local brands and they would mark them as being from the local area. And that was probably the beginning of branding as we know it in the United States. And then where it really got ramped up in a fashion that we might recognize today is really in the arms industry. Big industry in the 1800s. Unfortunately, a large part of that was a civil war. But you know, just like the arms industry in any time, the biggest buyer of their product many times is the government, and they wanted to sell to government, they wanted to sell to ordinary citizens. Well, they felt the best way to do that, many of these arms manufacturers, and there were plenty of them, heavy competitors, were to create a brand that they could create a story around. And this was really the first time they created stories around brands and gave them almost a personality of their own. Probably the best example of that was a gun called the Colt Peacemaker. Famous gun. It was known as the gun that won the West because a lot of Army generals used it to fight wars, and then every time a war would be, or a battle would be won, they would do a lot of press about it, the fact that Colt Peacemakers, it was called the Single Action Army Peacemaker. They do some articles about the fact that, of course, generated and produced by the Colt PR people about the fact that that particular gun was used in the battle. And they were used by famous law people, they were used by, you know, truth be known, they were used by robbers, they were used by, you know, bad guys as much as good guys, but you know, it became a story around that really increased sales, and people probably for the first time in a long time actually, or maybe ever, actually started asking for a brand by name. They wanted to buy the Colt Peacemaker, and that was the gun that really kind of set off branding as we know it today. Now, product branding itself, what is it? I mean, we kind of think of product branding as that, you know, in the case of, shoes, for example, that Nike swoosh on it, or the Under Armour or the Adidas, whatever logo on it, on the product. But in reality, you know, the product is what you're wearing on your feet, or, you know, what you're using. The actual branding is really mostly in your head. And that's what a lot of people don't seem to get yet, okay? And basically the branding is what it says about the product, your experience with the product, how you feel about it, your satisfaction level, what other people say when they see you wearing that product or buying that product. That's what the branding is. And it's not the actual product itself or that actual logo. That logo is a mark of your brand, or of the brand. It's not the actual branding. Now, what about nonprofit branding? Is that a good thing for nonprofits to do? Well, it's been done for a lot longer than you might imagine, and probably first started when a little organization known as the International Red Cross started back in, I think it was like 1863, I want to say, in that area. But it was around the time when there was a lot of battles just before, probably just before the World War I, that period there, and a lot of battles throughout Europe. And what was happening is, after a battle, wounded soldiers would be left laying in the field. Why? Why? Because you don't want to go out there and get that wounded soldier because if you did, you were going to be shot. Well, it was a terrible thing. It's terrible. War is terrible, period. But this was really barbaric, because if you go out and just try to help somebody that's wounded, you're going to get shot and killed. And that, even if you're not from the army, if you're a medical person going out to help somebody who was wounded in a battle, they're going to shoot you because they think you're from the other side. Well, some people thought that was barbaric, and it was. So they got together and they got an agreement that was really accepted internationally, and they created this organization, the International Red Cross. And every nation agreed that, listen, these people marked with this red cross, guess what that is, right? A logo. And it indicated their brand. People marked with that logo, that red cross, they were not going to get shot. Of course, only the medical people were allowed to wear it, but after a battle, they would go into the field, pick wounded up, and either side, and they would actually take care of people from either side too. And basically, they were, immune to it. People stopped shooting at them. The other side stopped shooting at them, and that was agreed to nationally. Well, that symbol became very strong, and of course, the American Red Cross is maybe what we're more familiar with, but it's the same concept. What happened is, during the war, probably starting in the First World War, soldiers would see that. They'd see it on somebody's arm. They'd see it on somebody's. They'd see it on somebody's arm. Excuse me, and they'd see it on the medical truck, and they'd understand that was somebody helping their friends, helping soldiers in the field. Then after the war, the Red Cross might be set up and selling donuts and coffee, or actually giving it to soldiers and asking for donations. Well, they remembered that their friends were being helped by the American Red Cross, and so they donated. So that was probably the first time the branding really contributed to donations in the case of a nonprofit. So it had a very strong impact because people remember that logo during a very emotional time, and it worked. It really did. So you have to think about branding as a way to help you accomplish your mission. It helps you become strong and sustainable, and really that's a necessary goal of all nonprofits, isn't it? You want to be strong, you want to be sustainable so you could accomplish your mission. That's the way you build loyalty, and that's the way you demonstrate value, and that's really what you want to do by, you produce you make your mission clear, you deliver what's promised, and then you demonstrate value and build loyalty. That's the idea of branding. But if you don't have a brand and you don't do branding, they're not going to understand who to give that loyalty to. They're not going to understand who's demonstrating value. So that's a very important thing to do. And if you ask me, or if you ask anybody that's experienced in larger nonprofits, they're going to tell you that branding helps you accomplish your mission. It helps you demonstrate value and build loyalty. So yes, nonprofits, not only should they do it, they must do it.